All right, good morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. We are here today with Suzanne Boehs, and I am so excited that she's here with us today. So, Suzanne, I'm going to get you to introduce yourself so everybody knows who you are while I share, and away we go.
I'm Suzanne Boehs. I am married to Corey Boehs, who is a spray foamer. We are currently out of Enid, Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I've got 3 kids, and I've kept up with an entrepreneurial husband, well, for almost 19 years now, but in the spray foam world, it's been 13. So
You guys have been married for 19?
It'll be 19 in October.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we were married right after the Twin Towers fell.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That same year.
That same year. And because I was from Canada, there was some moments of terror in our life at that point, because would the borders close before we could actually marry and
Right.
I could transition to the States. But we were one of the first. So in our culture where we grew up, there's a lot of that intermarrying, and we were one of the first couples to get married, and everything went seamlessly for us. And
yeah,
we were one of the really fortunate ones.
Where in Canada are you from? You said in your video on Monday on your live, you said something about pond hockey, and I'm like, that sounds a little Canadian to me, but like I don't like to, assume. Where are you from in Canada?
I was born and raised in northern Alberta.
Whereabouts?
I was born in Grand Prairie, and then I was raised in the Bad Heart area. Like, it's not even, I mean, it is kind of on the map.
Right.
TP Creek Stampede. We were 20 miles from TP Creek.
Oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I lived in Airdrie for 20 some years. I'm from Saskatchewan. So know where Grand Prairie is for sure. So,
and so then when I was 18, my family moved to Saskatchewan. They took me with them kicking and screaming because I was Albertan. I was not going to be from Saskatchewan ever.
Right.
But my family is still, well, my older brother and my mom and dad are still in Saskatchewan. Yeah.
Where in Saskatchewan?
Carrot River, like the end of the line.
Right. Yes. Well, like now I feel like we're super connected.
I know. Yeah.
That's very cool. Awesome. So let's begin at the beginning, I guess. You guys have how many kids again? Sorry, 3, right?
We've got 3 kids.
2 boys and a girl.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's chat about your kids a little bit. We were talking just a minute before we got started about your daughter, but tell us about your sons first.
Oh my gosh. Well.
And their ages.
Casey is 13 and Jordan is 8. And they're into dirt bikes and Minecraft and fishing and just all the boy things, really.
All the boy things.
Yeah.
And how has it been quarantining with boys? Oh. Should I include your husband in that boys group or?
Well, I have to say we've been incredibly fortunate because we moved to an acreage. So we spent some time in a transient world, and we moved to our own acreage now last August. So we've got 10 acres. We're out in the country, and we had the most gorgeous spring Oklahoma's had in years.
Oh,
so
nice.
Every day I was super grateful because I saw people quarantining, going through this with heavy snowfall coming down in Canada, my siblings, and I'm like, we have the outdoors, and we've been able to do a lot of dirt bikes on the acres and that sort of thing. But
I think that makes a huge difference, because I know in our building where we live, there's a family, we've got a little like open area where there's a little playground that's been like blocked off. But since like in the last little while, they've come down and, it's just like one family with 3 kids. And I always think, oh my God, like that's gotta be super hard. Like a whatever size condo or apartment that they live in, like that's gotta be crazy. So yeah, you guys, that's good that you have that space where they can exert their energy.
Yes. But I am definitely seeing, so our daughter, Brooklyn, is she's super creative, and I mean, she has just turned out project after project after project during this time. I mean, she's crocheted and painted and created wall hangings and oh, you name it. So I've been really busy keeping up with supplies and you know, teaching her how in it all too. She managed to use a seam ripper and slit her finger open, so that required 9 stitches.
Oh,
so that
nice.
was, I mean, we've had lots of fun in that way.
Right.
But I'm really seeing that my boys are, they're ready for, like, they keep basically creating problems so that they have something to solve. And I'm like, could you stop creating these problems? But I'm realizing like they need that stimulation, that school, that reading, that push, that stimulates that brain. My boys are ready. They're ready to solve the world's problems. And I'm like,
I think that this thing, and I'm not going to speak for all kids, but I think for a lot of kids, it's going to make them maybe have a little bit of a better appreciation of school, like the actual structure of school, right? Because it's been, I think we forget, and we're gonna talk about mindset and stuff in a minute, but like I think we forget that kids, this is hard for them too. Like, they're kids and they're, you know, whatever, but this is hard for them. I am connected with a lady who, she has a special needs son. She's got 3 kids, and her one son is, I think he's on the autism spectrum. And she was just yesterday, she did a live about it and just said, like, people don't realize with kids without special needs, it's hard. But then you add on that extra, and she said it's just been incredibly challenging with homeschooling and just the whole craziness of everything. So
and I just keep saying we have been so fortunate because Oklahoma, we opened earlier than a lot of people, so we've been able, and you know, being in the country, we've been able to have some interaction with people. But in the first span of time too, like my kids almost went crazy without their friend interaction. And we're a family who's pretty used to being just the 5 of us around our table. So, you know, we're not into sports yet. Hopefully we'll get there one of these days. So it's not as if my kids were even missing their sports team. And I was just kept sitting there and thinking, like, what about the kids that have their life dependent on their sports? And what about the kids whose their place of validation and peace has been their sport or their music or their band or something of that nature? Gosh.
And you know, I've thought about those kids too, that school is their safe place, you know, and it's just, it's hard for everybody. It's just, you know, but like you said, having that extra open space, that's a bonus for sure. So, but I wanted to touch base about your daughter, because as we were just talking about her, not about her, but like in a bad way, in a good way, Brooklyn, if you're watching, I just was saying to you, like, how incredibly, I don't even know what the word is for her, but she's so wise. I feel like she's wise beyond her years. And for her, she's 14 going on 15, and she writes and shares just things that, you know, everybody at that age would be terrified to do. And I'm sure it's not an easy thing for her to share that either. That's not something that you do just like, oh, this is easy. She does it so beautifully. And I think she's a leader for, like, those kids will start, whoever is following her will realize that they can do the same thing, and it's okay. And to be comfortable with yourself, she talks about being comfortable in her own skin and just like her own self. And I love that so much. So important.
I know.
How did you guys get, I guess we were gonna talk about spray foam too, because you worked with Corey. I'll let you tell the story. Tell the story.
Tell the story. Okay, well, I'll start with spray foam. So we started spray foam 13 years ago when Casey was, it's exactly 13 years ago. It was middle to end of July that we started spray foam. So he would have been, you know, 2-month, 3-month-old baby, and we went out on some of our first jobs, and I went out with Corey because we were going to do this mom and pop weekend and night thing. He got into it because his dad was a contractor and spray foam fit in well, and we can make a little extra money on the side and all this stuff. And so yeah, one of the bigger jobs that we did was down about 2 hours from our place here, and we left Brooklyn with grandma, and we took Casey with us, put him in a playpen in the shade, and I ran back and forth between keeping Corey connected to the spray foam gun and making sure Casey was happy in the playpen and all this kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, those were interesting moments because things didn't ever go as planned.
Right, as they don't.
And they don't. And the learning curve that Corey had with spray foam was epic, but he kept going and going, and it was amazing. And from there, we grew to, took a couple years before we got a couple employees, and then I went strictly to mom and raising our 3 kids. And you just feel free to ask any questions here, because I'm just going to kind of skip. And so we were born and raised Holdeman Mennonite. Both Corey and I were. And that's the world that we started our spray foam, cool foam adventure in. And in 2013, we left that world, and cool foam was going strong. It was fabulous. The economy was great. We did fabulous.
Yeah.
And in 2017, we really hit rock bottom with the company and some of that sort of stuff. So we had to regroup. We let go of most of our employees, and we started to, how are we going to keep this thing from going under, basically.
Right. I thank you for bringing that up about you guys leaving.
Okay.
Because I know we've touched on that with a couple other people. They've touched on that very briefly, saying like, we left that part of our life and started new. And I think if you're comfortable talking about that, people are like, what does that mean? What did they leave, and why did they leave? And because the very little bit I know about that is extremely hard to break away from, to start new. So how did you, what was there? I'm sure there was many reasons, but can you kind of explain to us how that came to be and why? And
well, for me, it was, and there's a lot of, I'm just going to use the word spiritual stuff in it, like that I don't, to this day, I don't really have an explanation for it in one way. But I know that in 2012, I had really never believed in the core. And I don't know that people ever really, that their inner belief. So I always like to, this is a place where I'm super passionate. Like, this is where my passion lies, is when you live in a culture like that, your inner beliefs, you could almost say, never match your outer way of living. So my inner beliefs just continually tried to press out against that outer way of living. And in 2012, I was like, I can't do this anymore. I can't. My inner beliefs are screaming at me, and I keep lying, and I'm not a liar by nature. I'm not good at it. When something happens, you can read it all on my face. So I was literally breaking down physically, in physical health and emotional health, because I couldn't keep the lie up any longer. So I started to look for my way out, thinking that I would probably leave as just me and leave Corey and the kids to remain faithful. But I had some guidance, and I'm going to say it was my guardian angels, and they kept literally telling me to be quiet in a 9-month period where I had made my decision that I was going to exit. And I wanted to talk to Corey about it, but I just kept being told, be quiet. So I was quiet. And 9 months later, he looked at me one day, he says, I just don't think I can drink this Kool-Aid anymore. And I'm like,
oh, very interesting. So like when you're talking about breaking away, I guess it's probably a combination of teachings, as well as, I'm assuming there's a lot of rules and things that go along with that, because when you're in some religious, I don't even know what they're called. like religious groups, cults. Yeah, like I know that, that's it that we could go on for days about this conversation for sure. But
Exactly.
when you go to break away from that, I've had friends that have done that with in different religious groups, and it was hell for them.
Yeah.
They were just, it really, 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 really did a lot of damage. They are now like, they're fine and recovered and whatever, but moving on and having like their life is very, very good, but it is very challenging.
Well, and that's, again, like that's what I say. It's where I'm super passionate, because we've walked that journey and we've done the healing, we've done the discovering. So when you are born and raised into its mindset, its belief, and its rules, and it's all outer control, and you're taught that a big thing is you don't have autonomy, and the whole structure of a system like that is built on codependency. So when you walk away from that, I always liken it to being a hothouse tree or a bonsai tree. This is one of my favorite descriptions. It's like being a bonsai tree being raised inside of a greenhouse, and your top is trimmed and your roots are trimmed so that you stay compact, you stay small, you stay with group think, and then one day you burst forth into growth, and they say, well, we can't have you here anymore, so they throw you out, and you become planted in the wilderness or the pasture or whatever, and you're no longer is the temperature controlled and the water controlled and the food controlled. Right. All of a sudden you're like, oh my gosh, where am I going to just blow away? Is there going to be any stability? And the journey, and I want to make this abundantly clear, it has been an incredibly difficult journey, but there is not one step of it. So today, I would say that I started my real mindset growth about 2 years ago, and we've been out of that system 7 years. There's not one step of it that I would do differently, and I'm grateful for every step, for what I learned, and this is a story of abundance, and it's a story of overcoming, because while it was difficult, it's been good. Right. And so we almost lost our business. Who doesn't? Really, like you start looking at really successful people that are my heroes and role models, they all go through that. It's okay.
Right. Yep.
We can all survive. It's fine. So
people tend to look at the people that I know, I've got a number of them that I follow and I've watched and, listen to, and it's like everybody sees them as they are now. They miss the whole middle part, and the middle part, you cannot be in business and not have the middle part. And it's going to be hard, and it's going to suck, and it's going to be all those things, and you're going to lose sleep. You're going to have stress. It's going to be tough. Yeah. But like you say, it's all of that. That's how you learn, and that's how you grow.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
But losing that that portion, because was it like that in the group that you were in? Everybody supports the people for business. They don't go outside. Everybody in that church supports everybody else in that church, and kind of not anybody else.
They support others, but it's just an organic, it's an insurance system. And that's what, it's an insurance system. If you stay within those walls, you have a high standard of living, and you're pretty much guaranteed that. If you're,
sorry, there we are.
If you're at all caring about, if I don't know how to explain it, as we've moved out, we've realized how high our standard was, and that is always made possible by the group around you.
Right.
And you do have a support system. You have your aunts and your uncles and your grandparents and your great grandparents, and and you have the school, and you have, you know, everything is there, and it's canned. Like, it's like I say, I go back to it's being like being in a greenhouse, like, but some of us weren't created to be in a greenhouse. That's just all.
So when you guys made that decision to leave, as you just mentioned, your family, how has that been with your families? Like parents and cousins and, you know, everybody in that organization.
It's been incredibly difficult.
Right.
Not gonna lie.
Mm-hmm.
The rejection, and you know, we're 7 years through, we're in a place. So when we came out, when your mindset is one thing, you basically create what you think you do, what you fear you create. So we were always told that if you leave, you know, I mean, of course we got shunned and shamed, because that's
part of the thing.
But we've grown enough to where we've put up boundaries, and we say, you know, you're not allowed to shun or shame us. Guess what? Like, it doesn't happen in nearly as much of a painful way. So while it was incredibly painful coming out, we've strengthened ourselves so tremendously, and we've learned to start asking for what we need and want. We've started to break away from codependent thinking that, you know, everybody needs to be happy for me to be happy. And we say, like, you know, if sitting at a separate table is what Thanksgiving looks like, then we're not going to be part of Thanksgiving. Well, then that got quickly turned over, and we could sit at the same table. We're like, well, that was easy. Why didn't we do that 3 years ago? But we were so conditioned right when we left that we didn't know we had those tools. So we've had to learn which tools we actually had. We had a voice. We didn't know we had a voice.
Yeah.
Because you're taught not to have a voice. You're taught to just follow the crowd. You know, think as everybody else thinks, do as everybody else does, because that's where the shaming comes in. That's the power that these cultures have. And please, I want to make this abundantly clear. I love my people.
Yeah.
I want them all, they go ahead and stay within your culture, but what I would love for them more than anything is to be free of shame. Now, we know from great shame researchers, we know you should never be completely free of shame, but the shame that controls. So in a culture like that, the power that they have is the power of mass shaming. If you misstep, your name will be broadcasted, and people will give you the cross-eyed look next time, or you'll be expelled, which is then shunned and shamed, and they won't shake your hand and sit with you. So there's a level of control with shame.
Right.
When I learned to not feel that shame, when I could step outside of it, they've lost all control. And guess what's left? They do love me. I know that they do.
Yeah.
Much of their treatment towards me comes from their own pain and their own shame and their own, and when I can clear my shit away, and I can step back into that circle confident, healthy, they respond super well to that, like all humans do, right?
Yes. And you know, boundaries are something I've been trying to I want to talk more about boundaries, because and I think boundaries are easy to do with people who are not super close to you. That's an easy thing to do. But when you're talking about family, putting up a boundary to, I don't know, a parent, a grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a brother, a sister, whoever it is in your family, that's hard.
Yes.
Because how do you look at that person like who you've been with your entire life, and now you're going to say, oh, by the way, you're not going to treat me like that anymore, you know? And that's a scary thing. And I think we build it up quite a bit more, like you say, in your head or in our thinking than actually what it's going to be. It's that fear.
And I have sucked at boundaries, but I am learning. Oh my gosh, am I learning? With an absolute voracious appetite to learn this. So from a person who's had absolutely no boundaries to a person who's learning boundaries, oh, if I could just tell people one thing, it's not, the fear is completely in your head. People respect, when I love myself well enough to put up boundaries, people respect that. Mm-hmm. And they respond. Like, I guess there'd be there's a few who don't respond well, but what tends to happen is when someone refuses to, when you become a more boundaried person and someone refuses to respond to those boundaries, it's not that you keep rubbing up against the other. You just kind of, it's the law of attraction or whatever. You just disappear out of each other's lives, because basically, I think what boundaries means is I'm growing upwards. And if you're refusing to accept my boundaries and level up with me, you're staying, and the distance just gets farther apart. So the fear of boundaries is all in our heads.
Well, and I think too, it's that fear I know for me, I'll speak for myself, that fear is because I hate conflict. I become like, I get fight or flight mode, and I want to run, and like, I'm not even going to talk about it. I'm just going to bolt. I'm out of here. Like, I can't fight. I don't know really. I don't know if that's the right term. I don't know how to fight, but like, I hate that so much. So, the thought of putting up a boundary and somebody coming at me and being like mad at me for that, and that's all on me. It's not on them. And no. I guess if they're going to say that to me, that's on them.
Yeah.
And I'm putting the boundary up because that's why. So yeah, it's overcoming our own insecurities and those things that are triggering to put that boundary up. And it, like you say, you grow apart, and it's just natural. And
the other thing, like, so everything you've said, it's triggering, it's conflict, it's all these things that society, or maybe our 2 million year old brain who always wants to keep us safe, maybe it's that part that says you can't conflict, you can't trigger, you can't, all this kind of stuff. In the last, I would say, since COVID started, I have done so much digging into what is a resilient mind. Like, I was just like a dog with a bone. Like, I need to be so resilient that if I'm triggered, I can snap out of it. Or if someone conflicts with me, I can snap out of it. And because of where my passion lies, I'm like, what if trolls on the internet come at me and I crumble into a heap? Like, what's going to happen? Right. And I'm like, I have to figure out how I can be strong to that. Mm-hmm. And it's just, for me, it has been sitting. And as soon as a trigger hits me, I go, okay, triggered. Am I going to die because of this trigger? Well, no. Okay. So what's the next worst thing am I going to lose this relationship? Well, no, because we do love each other. So like, I'll talk specifically about Corey and I. And then I breathe one more time, and I'm like, okay, what if I just think through where this trigger is going in my brain? Like, what fear is it bringing up for me? Mm-hmm. And you get there and you're like, okay, that fear is so ridiculous.
Yeah. So,
I mean, maybe to be a bit more clear, Corey and I have been walking a path. I'm going to be open here. So I would say about 3 years ago, we were told that we were codependent by a person who was also very codependent, and she didn't have.
And that's always good advice from a codependent person.
I have done so much laughing about it. So she just threw this at us, and I was like, interesting. I don't even know what that is. And she didn't have any more information for me. So it basically went straight over my head, right?
Right.
Well, here back in November, a very great therapist looked at both Corey and I, and she's like, you guys have some massive codependency issues. And she said, and here's some knowledge and some podcasts and some information and some research you can do on what codependency looks like and what it's going to look like to take care of it. So I started digging into that, and I tell you what, was I triggered? I actually have 4 pages where I wrote out the pros and cons of staying and leaving codependency.
So let's touch on this for just a second and just explain to people briefly what that means. What is codependency? Because it's something that everybody's probably heard the term, but maybe doesn't fully understand. So yeah, maybe give a little cold version.
See if I can do it well. Codependency is putting your happiness in the hands of somebody else's emotions and happiness. So basically between Corey and I, it was like, I'll be happy if you're happy. So, or I'm okay if you're okay. So hurry up and be okay so that I can be okay. That's putting the responsibility of my okayness on him and his okayness.
Yeah.
And so what you start as a tug of war is every single time, we're humans and we're going to have triggers, we're going to have bad days, but every single time he'd have a bad day, I'd go, oh shit, what's going on? And I would fall with him. And I would start the whole train in my thought, like, you know, this is the end. We're breaking up. We're not going to be able to survive this. And I mean, yeah, ridiculous, right? And then
I'm laughing because
no,
hi, here I am. I get it.
I know that. Yeah. And then he, you know, so he had like, maybe all that went well. Okay. Classic example is I went out to shop one day because I felt that he was a little bit dark. And I mean, I just spiraled. And all that had happened was the gun had gone down. He'd lost a job. Like it was totally in cool form. It had nothing to do with me, but I spiraled. So he comes back into my world and he sees my cloudy, dark face. And because we're both codependent, he goes, oh shit, I did something that made her pissed off. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we just sink to depths. So coming out of that is keeping your side of the street clean. Now I look at when I, you know, if I feel that tendency, I'm like, have I done something that I feel in my soul is wrong? Well, no. Okay. Was I joyful before I saw his cloudy face? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. My side of the street currently is clean. I will stay over here on my side of the street and I will be, if he needs to come to my side of the street because his is so dark and dirty right now, that's fine. I'm not going over to his. I don't know if that makes sense, but.
Well, it does make sense. And here's the thing, I think what happens, and I'll speak for myself because that is me. So, and I've been working super hard to not be like that because it isn't like, it's always that fear of, okay, if, you know, if something's wrong, like, oh my God, like he's probably going to be gone, like just craziness, total craziness that isn't even real. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is when I think in marriages and relationships, when that person is struggling, it's like, for me, it's hard not to just jump in there and be like, oh, like, because what am I going to walk around and be, oh, I'm all happy and you're having a bad day. Like, that's okay. I'm happy over here. I think that's where people get kind of confused because they don't know how to be together in that space in different in different places. So when whether it's me or him, how does one, you know, manage that and maneuver that?
And that, I mean, Corey and I are still.
It's hard.
It is absolutely difficult, but for me, it's realizing how, I think one question that I ask myself in this is how do I show up in this instance, the best version of myself and communicate like, so I think here's something that we get in, we think that empathy looks like crawling into the shit with them. And empathy is actually being clean and saying, hey, you know that I'm here for you. I'm here to listen. You're free to vent. You know, is there something I can do to take part of this load off of your plate? But also, again, it comes back to being a well-boundaried person. For me to walk into the Cool Foam shop and say, hey, you know, do I need to go out on the job with you and blah, 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 blah. That's because that'll create a waterfall of disaster in my home and in my own world,
Right.
which will then lead me to falling into it with him. Whereas if I can just stay, like, that I'm here for you, I'm here to vent, but ultimately making that other person 100% responsible for their emotions, their feelings. Like, I cannot be, I'm here for you. So like you say, you know what? It's okay if you put your AirPods in and you're going, I'm happy over here and I'm listening to my music because your darkness over there just wants to creep in, but I'm going to stay up over here. So when you're ready to come back to the light is right here.
Right.
It's okay, because this is my favorite. A rising tide raises all boats. Yes. If I keep my tide up here, his boat's
will follow.
It's gonna level up.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a hard thing. And especially, I have come from people pleasing and, all the things. So coming away from that and, deciding, you know what, I've got to be better for me. I don't have to be better for anybody else. I've got to be better for me. Coming from a codependency brain and a people-pleasing brain and all of the things. Doing that, and that's why when I post, I always try to add in there, this is not selfish, it is selfless. Because when you're better, everybody around you is going to be better. Without you having to do much of anything. It's just a natural thing.
I know that.
Yeah.
And Carla, that, like, what you're talking about right there is something I have grappled with for years. So being raised in King James Version, super religion, we were taught Jesus first, ourselves last, and others in between.
Oh, interesting.
It's actually
others in between.
So it's Jesus, others, and then you. And then the golden rule was always thrown at us, like, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. But it was always like, do for others first. Give others the best.
Oh man.
And I know, because I've been through some other religions in the past 5 years and I've watched and listened, we had maybe the extreme end of it, but that is such a pervasive, thought. And I'm going to throw out another one here. So I want to, another verse that was often used is, I'm going to draw a blank.
It'll come back.
It'll come back. It doesn't matter. But basically it was like, you can only love someone as much as you love yourself. That was always used. But the loving ourselves, what we were always taught that anything about ourselves was wrong. Like, to want anything, to have anything, that was wrong. That was selfish. So to shift my mindset and to realize that I need to come from a place where I am so taken care of, that I finally have something to pour out, because I have given from an empty vessel all my life. And it has made me resentful and angry and bitter and bitchy, like not a nice human to be around. But I continued to give because I believed that was the way to abundance. And to shift that mindset, because here's the conundrum. Until you get to serve humanity from a full place, life, for me, I'm speaking for myself now, is the fulfillment of life is to be able to serve humanity. And I would look to my past and I've said, I've served humanity all my life. I don't ever want to do it again. But I came from such a depleted state, and I had no clue how to, like, what fired me up? What was my passion? Where was I going to serve humanity from just like an overflowing state?
When you give and give and give and give, how can you possibly know what your passion is?
Exactly.
You're busy filling up everybody else's, and you're not getting it back. It rarely comes back. For myself, I was filling people's cups who didn't give two rips about me.
Yep.
And like, because I didn't want to deal with myself and I didn't want to deal with my junk. So I'm going to deal with everybody else's junk.
Yep.
I'm going to help them and I'm just going to, but I wasn't doing it as an arrogant thing. Like I truly was, I was wanting to help them.
I know.
And I look back on that and go, what in the world? Like what? It's insanity to me now. When I think about that, I think, I don't even know, like that person, I don't even know that person hardly anymore, but it's people think they're helping and they really believe they are. And it's coming from what you think is a good place, but what you're doing to yourself is so horrific.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when people go, I don't know what my passion is and I don't know what I love and I don't know, it's because you're doing everybody else's.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
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 And you can't, so that's why I always try to add in, this is not selfish, this is selfless. Like my morning walks that I do, I said to Rex very recently, I said, nobody gets me before that's out of my way. Like, not that it's out of my way, like getting it done. I need that time because it makes me a better person.
Yeah.
And so I'm going to act better in my daily life because I have taken care of that part of me. And, however that looks for anybody, do something for you. Like, it's not selfish.
But how much work did it take for you to discover what filled your cup?
Well, I'm only 51, so 50 years, it only took 50 years.
And tell me some of the things that, like, what did you try before that you thought, oh, this is what everybody's doing, it's going to make me that better person, or it's going to, what are those things?
I would, so when all this, my whole thing was, my life completely came to a halt in 2008 and things fell apart and I had to restart. And that's when I dug in, not gracefully. Let me just say that. It was pretty awful. But anyways, what I did, I started consuming and watching YouTube. Like I started, and it's funny because when I listen to some of those people now, I'm like, oh man, like I forgot I listened to that person. Byron Katie was a huge one for me. Tony Robbins was huge. Brene Brown. Like there was just different, and it was just little clips. It wasn't like I didn't sign up for courses. I didn't do that. Eventually I did go to a weekend course through the group called Landmark, which I think they're still around. I did a weekend thing because my neighbor at that time was involved in the organization. That weekend, which when you go to some of those things, then they want you to go to the next thing and become a person. And like, I was out after the weekend thing, but I still use tools from that weekend. And that was probably in 2009 or 10, I went to that. Mm-hmm. It was completely eye-opening, some of the things that we went through in that course. And it was really going into the hard stuff. So it was me looking into myself going, oh, damn, like I can't blame that. Like that was me. Ew. And that's why I say it's the hardest work you'll do, but it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
I know. Because that's much of my journey. So I mean, I've given you a little bit of a snapshot of us leaving the actual religion, but in 2018, we had actually, which is, okay, I want to say this here. So as soon as we left our Mennonite church, we jumped into like a Southern Baptist. It was a non-denominational, but it was, now we look back and we understand it was very Southern Baptist. It was just kind of same, just packaged a little bit differently. Mm-hmm. Well, we became too rowdy for them also. So we fell out of grace with that community. And And that was in 2018. And kind of as we phased out of that, Corey and I made the decision to take our kids and go to Mexico. We'd never done anything like this. We've always traveled to Canada to see my family because that's what was expected of us. Well, we were going to step out. We were going to go to Mexico. And I mean, Brene Brown stepped into my world at that point, and she told me, she through her book, she told me to live without foreboding joy, just with joy. So I've always been, I don't know how to say this, but I've always been an incredibly fear-filled person. But I've been told recently that it's only because I'm fear-filled that I've had the courage and the bravery to step over that fear 1,000 times. But she told me, like, I got this message that I've always been very fearful of travel, fearful of Mexico, blah, blah, blah. And I made a decision that I was going to be joy-filled about that trip. I wasn't going to have foreboding joy. Well, Corey's spraying a job on Saturday. We're supposed to be flying out Sunday morning. We're going to drive to Dallas. He gets home at about 5 o'clock Saturday afternoon. And at 3 o'clock, I go to pack the passports. And we had gotten the kids' passports because we go to Canada all the time, right?
Yeah.
So it's really important that we have passports. And we had let the kids lapse because we were in such a dark season. But we'd gotten them, never looked at Corey's passport. His passport was outdated by a year. Here we are. We're literally 18 hours from flying to Mexico, and he doesn't have a passport. It was awful. He comes home, he says, we're driving to Dallas. He says, I don't know what we're going to do. We'd already done some talking around it. You know, there was this thought that maybe we could get a passport for him at the embassy in Dallas, if that's the right word, whatever. Yeah. But he kept pushing me. He's like, you're going to fly to Mexico with the kids. I'm like, no way in hell. That was absolutely my worst fear, traveling with 3 kids to a foreign country. I didn't travel well at the best of times, but going without him was like, no way. And I woke up that Sunday morning just in a massive panic attack. But fast forward, I flew to Mexico with my 3 kids. It wasn't fun. And honestly, it wasn't the best vacation we've ever been on. I wish I could look at you and say, like, oh, everything.
Oh, it went so awesome.
No, I was pissed at Corey. I was crabby. I was so tired. But we came home from that trip, and I looked at Corey and I said, I'm driving to Canada. And literally 3 weeks later, I packed the car up, and me and the kids, Corey came with us up to Calgary, and then he flew back home. And my kids and I, we did about a 4,000-mile loop, seeing all my siblings and mom and dad. And that again was like massively outside of my comfort zone. I came home from that, and I looked at him, I said, I'm going to Choices, which is a lot like Landmark. And again, I'm just like, it was way outside my comfort zone, but I was so done living in that state. And I went to Choices. I did those processes. I looked deep within my soul, and I said, the only person who can change my life is me. Yes. And the only person who has, like, I have the ability to manage my emotions. I have the ability to seek what I want and even need. And it was there that my dreams, like, and again, so coming out of a very patriarchal culture, I feel like I didn't really have dreams as a kid, but it was there that I was like, I have words and I want to speak. And I started that ball rolling. Like you say, Brene Brown, and I started with, now we're gonna phase into Brooklyn. So it was summer of 2018 that I did Choices. So I lived about a year, like, really practicing their tools, which are things like, I create what I fear. If I do the same thing, I get the same thing. And just finally having become aware of, like, everything that's going on up here, I actually do have control over it. Yeah. So I started to stumbling practice that, like, oh, if I have control, what do I want? Yeah. And then last year, 2019, Brooklyn and I went to Rachel Hollis. I don't know if you ever heard of her.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
So we went to her.
Yeah, you guys went to the conference. Yeah.
Yes. And also I have to back up just a minute on that too. So Choices has a teen camp, which that is something the whole world needs, because that's just super powerful.
Landmark did as well. And my youngest daughter did go to a weekend thing. And I think I know with her, there are certain things that I know she got out of that she uses now. And it was great.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So I took Brooklyn with me, and I know that at Rise Dallas, they called out who the youngest person was, and a 15-year-old stood up. And Brooklyn didn't stand up, or wasn't quick enough or whatever. So I think she was probably the youngest person at 13 years old. But just for her to be able to be immersed, and I think this is so powerful, to be immersed, there was about 6,500 women.
Yeah.
And when they say that the 5 people you surround yourself with is who you become, even in an immersion setting like that, those women, not nearly all 6,500 of them have a growth mindset, but there was a lot of women. There was that mindset, that immersion was there. And I feel like it saturated Brooklyn with like, hey, the same thing I had learned like a year ago at Choices. Hey, this is in my control. My school, my parents, ultimately, when she decides to date, her boyfriend or her friends don't have control over her brain. She gets to control that. And after Rise, that girl just took off.
Yeah. To me, that was, the same thing I thought too, was like, there should be those courses like that should be probably part of the school programming. You know what I mean? Like I think there should be a shift in a lot of areas. I've talked about trade shows. I've talked about schools. There should be that component. The personal development needs to be accessible, which you can find stuff online and you can find it. But when you're in a group setting like that with women, or, whether it's women or couples, or like for guys, if it's just all guys, like when you're in that kind of a set, there's more power in that, I feel, because you're with people and it's like, it's motivating, but it's also people are, there's somebody you can share that with, and it's powerful. It's very powerful.
Yeah. And I can't, like, to our listeners today, I can't recommend enough, whether you're spraying foam, whether you're the wife of a spray foam, or whether you're an entrepreneur who wants to start something completely different, research mindset, because it all lands in our mindset. And you guys, we don't have to pay for anything. You can pay for stuff. You should pay for stuff maybe eventually, or I don't like that word should. You can, but seriously, we have the internet, we have the Google bar. Just Google exactly, what are you finding? Like I did with codependency. Maybe you're going, I am constantly triggered by this thing. Google it. Find a YouTube talk. I can't tell you enough. Like if you want a better level, find someone who is one level above you and go, what have they done? And listen incessantly and read incessantly. Leaders are readers. Start reading. There are literally a billion books out there. Maybe you'll read 7 and only one paragraph is going to go, whoa, but it's that one paragraph.
Yes.
See it, find it. Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. And it's people, I don't like that. That's the one thing that I get kind of frustrated with social media is certain words become buzzwords and they lose their meaning. Like I'm talking gratitude, hashtag grateful, thankful, and blessed. I detest that hashtag, but I am about gratitude all the time because people have, like, they use it as a thing for their post. They don't practice it. When people hear mindset or they hear like anything in that realm, they get kind of weirded out. Like, oh, what is this? Like, kind of strange. Like, are you going to sage me, like, and be all weird? You know what I mean? And it's not that at all. You can, like you're saying, Google it, research it, audiobooks, put in a podcast, listen to a podcast. There's
But
a million of them.
You know me, Carla, I use hashtag gratitude. Why? Because gratitude is the number one thing that turned my life around. And I'll stop here again. I'm like, you guys, notebooks, note pages. Oh, that one even has something written on it. And I mean, they're full of it. I've got stacks of them. Grab a Post-it note and write down 5 things that you're grateful for.
Yep.
And if you're triggered, return to that Post-it note. Put it on your pocket if you have to. Be as ridiculous as you have to. Write it on your forearm. I don't care what it takes.
Yep.
Return to that gratitude, and you're going to watch your life go upward.
Yes. And I think that's where people go, as if, like, whatever. I use hashtag gratitude all the time, grateful and all those things too. But it really is. I mean, I did a year where I had a jar and I would put in, like, it was a gratitude jar. So every day, right at the end of the day, right, one thing you were grateful for that day. And you know, when you have a crappy day, dig in that jar, pull it out, read it, and go, oh, like that. Wow. Okay. And it's gratitude is not being like, this is where I kind of think it needs to be a bit deeper too, is not just like, I'm grateful for my family and I'm grateful for my kids. And like, okay, yes, yes. What are you like? Do some deep gratitude. Like it's, I think people are scared to look at that.
I think so too.
They want to look at the bad.
Yeah.
And they don't want to look at the good. And it's, I don't know why that is, because I've done a lot of thinking about that. And it's like, people are so drawn to all the like horrible. And they work so hard at being drawn to the good. And it should be like, it's backwards.
It is, because
it's so backwards.
There is so much power in the good. There's so much power in finding value in everything. And that, like, I've been grappling with this. I just last night on the front porch, I asked Corey, I said, how do I continue to show up authentic and real? Like, and I don't want to be one of these hype, I don't want to be your hype squad. Oh, I'm so grateful for this. I'm so grateful. Just exactly what you were saying. And still be 100% real. I mean, my house has aged 10 years in the last 5 months because I have 2 boys, 2 dogs, a cat, a daughter. I mean, we've broken windows. We have white carpet in our living room, which we bought the house like that. It looks like we have 10 pets and 17 boys on that white carpet. It's awful.
Yeah.
And I'm not sitting here and going, oh, I'm just so grateful for my white carpet, even though it has spots on it. No, it ticks me off. Like, every time I'm walking in, I'm like, I'd like someone to burn this carpet. Like, how do I, and trust me, Corey and I have been in an almost 19-year relationship. It hasn't been pretty.
Yep.
But, you know, so my question is, I'm always grappling with how do I show up
right,
authentic and real? Like, I have weeds in my flower garden.
That's so interesting you say that, because I've talked to Rex about that as well. And it's like, I never want to come across as being like, oh, this is like, everything's so wonderful. Because everything is not wonderful all the time. Like, it's life. Like, it can't be, right? Like, and it's being positive or being optimistic or being grateful and being thankful doesn't mean you can't be pissed off or frustrated or mad. Like, yes, you're a human being.
You just made me think of something. So I am smack in the middle of a Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi course, and I listened to Tony Robbins the other day. And I don't know if you love books, but there's a book called Learned Optimism. Freaking best book. I mean, it just, okay, this is my perspective. It was awesome. But he said early on in his career, he was with 3 high-powered businessmen. And this one businessman would go, they had a really bad business deal go down. And he's like, he watched this one businessman just unravel because he was just using all kinds of like very negative. He was pissed off. He was effing mad, blah, 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 blah. And the other guy was sitting back there and he kind of had a grin on his face, and Tony was watching this play out. And the other guy's like, yeah, this poses a little bit of a challenge. And Tony's like, why the difference in language?
Right.
And I get to a point where I say, I'm going to choose I think this is a little challenging because our vocabulary determines how we view a setting. So, I guess maybe to answer my own question in that, I don't care if people think I'm the positive police. I am.
I have had people that I know, and you're like messaging back and forth or whatever, just talking about whatever, and they're like, I don't mean to be negative. It's like, you can be negative. It's like, I'm not gonna say, don't say that because you're being negative. Like that positive policing, that's what made me think of it, because it's like, no, you get to have a space where you're like pissed off, and you know what? Give her, but like rein it in. Don't stay stuck there. It's when you get stuck in that.
Yes.
Like get it out of your system, but then move on.
And I think to go to what we kind of, to having a resilient mind, is how fast can you get out of that stuckness?
Right. So let's talk about that resilient mindset. So how does fill us in on what you've been learning about that, because that is, I think that's also the struggle, is people start out with this kind of in this personal development stuff and they think, okay, I'm going to do this. And then they start, and then they go, like they'll have something will happen and it's a setback for them. And they think, it didn't work. I'm done. I'm out. How do you get that mindset? Like you're saying, a resilient mindset, because that's, for myself is when I always say, don't let the day run you, you run the day. And now I've changed that to do your best on that, because sometimes the day is going to run you. And there's sometimes it's like you can't get out of it.
Okay, I'm getting a bit of a picture, because in the past I was always very aware of the spiral of my mind.
Right.
And I knew my mind spiraled. I knew it, but I had absolutely no, so let's make a word picture out of this. If my mind is a spiral and I have this little silver ball, what kind of gates do I have in place on that spiral to stop that ball from just going woo, like those right. March of Dimes that you put in the mall where it goes,
yes. yeah, exactly.
And honestly, so here's where resilience comes in. When we're talking about an actual muscle that you go to the gym and you build a resilient body, that resilient body doesn't even happen in 3 months. That muscle has got to be used every freaking day.
Yeah. Or
if not every day, 3-4 times a week. And I'm not talking like kill yourselves. I'm talking repetitive things. And when I look at practices, that was so some of the practices I've put into my life is yoga. And the reason I fell in love with it is, so I've done CrossFit, I've done all these other things.
Yeah.
But when I started to practice yoga, what I heard in that was, we practice every day. And I'm like, oh, we're not seeking perfection here. We're just seeking to show up, and we practice life the same. We practice yoga. And that's when it dawned on me, the same as we practice life. So my practices are, I wake up and I do yoga. Mm-hmm. I wake up and I do, same as you, and I do my gratitude journal. Mm-hmm. And those are the gates I've put in place. And I've done it now 2 years. Not even completely. My yoga, I've only started it since COVID, but my gratitude has been longer. Mm-hmm. And when I'm going to be 100% vulnerable, when a window gets shattered in my house here the other day, it's the practices that I've put into place that make me go, okay, I see what's going on here, and it's okay. And I just take a step back and I go, how do I show up in this place, creating the most value out of the situation? For me to yell isn't going to help.
Right.
And in the past, there would have been absolutely no gates. It would have gone whoop, 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 whoop. And it would have been, this shit always happens to me. I'm not a good enough mother. I can never be good enough. And it would have spiraled my, and I would have landed in the depths. It didn't, because I have practiced. And that is what, like, it's the same as going to the gym for your body. You go to gym for your mindset, and you pick a practice up and you don't quit. You just don't quit. You maybe quit one day, you pick it back up. You don't tell yourself it isn't working, because this is where the gratitude flips back in. Is if you're grateful, you're going to start seeing how that practice is working.
Yeah.
I guess I'll tell a little story. Like, I did gratitude. So I have something here on my wall. It says, faith is letting go of certainty and living in the present with gratitude for the abundance that will come in the future. And I wrote about the home while we had been living in rent house and stuff. I wrote about the home that we were going to get, as if we'd already had it. And one of the things that makes me laugh the most is it had lots of windows. It was light and airy, and it had a patch of fescue in the backyard, because fescue is super important to me. I don't love the Oklahoma Bermuda grass. This house has everything I wrote about, not exactly like I envisioned it. And the best part that makes me laugh every day is that it has a patch of fescue in the back that's watered by the sewer system.
Wow.
Like, how freaking funny.
Yeah.
It has the patch of fescue. I really don't want to walk across it, because those sprinklers come on anytime, whenever they say go on. But it has the patch of fescue. And without being like, and I could be a pessimist about it, I'm like, well, yeah, it has fescue, but I can't ever feel it because it's watered by the sewer system. Or I can laugh and I can go, like, it has the patch of fescue, and it makes me giggle every time I see it. Change your glasses. Look at it through a different lens.
Yes.
And it's practice. It's just, we show up every day and we practice again. We wake up the next morning, we go, yeah, kind of flopped that day, but hey, here's a new one. I get to practice again.
Yeah. That's, and when I was walking the other day, and I did a little video, and I was talking about how, people are religious about the gym. They're religious about what they consume food wise, like whatever diet that none of them work, but like, that's the thing that they're doing, and they follow it religiously, and they just like, and then they feed this all the garbage. And it was like, holy, hang on here a second. Like, why are we not feeding this the same as we're fueling our body?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that everybody, like, that's where it's missed. Fuel this the same way you would fuel your body. Because if this is right, the rest is going to follow. The weight you want to lose, guess what's going to happen?
Yeah.
You're going to lose it. It's not going to be overnight. It's not going to be, a week from now, all of a sudden you're going to be at that, whatever it is. It's going to take time. It's going to take time, like anything.
Well, and there is no, so on my whiteboard over here, I have say no to helicopters. Now I'll explain what I mean with that. There's two ways you can get to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. You can walk every freaking step.
Yeah.
Or you can take a helicopter. If you walk, you build resilience. Think about the views that you get. And when you get to that top, there is a sense of worth and a sense of accomplishment that going there in a helicopter will never give you, because it was easy. We have been sold a bill of goods that says our life should be easy. And the thing is as humanly, we have to have it hard. Hard is where the fulfillment is at. Hard is where the fun is at. If it wasn't a challenge, we just go, oh, well, I got to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro. Let's fly back down now. And it becomes a blip on our radar screen. Whereas if we actually climb every step of that, which I haven't done, maybe someday I will, I have no idea. But when we actually climb every step of it, every step is an accomplishment, and every step brings inspiration, and we get to climb, and then we get to look back and we go, wow, I used to
look how far I've come.
Look where I am.
Yeah.
And technically life doesn't ever get you to the top.
That's very good, because it is one of those things too. I know when I walk, I'm like, well, I'm always taking pictures and stuff of things I see and whatever, but like I observe when I'm walking how people walk. You know how people walk?
Mm-hmm.
They walk to get it finished. They don't look around. They don't look at like the flowers or the trees or sometimes the turtles that are in the lagoon that I walk around. Like they miss all of it because they're so focused on getting home.
Yeah.
Like take a breath. Look around you, observe, look at the color, look at the, like whatever, just you're missing so much because you're trying to get on to the next thing.
Yes.
Step back. And I also wanted to say and ask you, when you did that trip to Mexico with your kids and you came home, that feeling of accomplishment that you did it.
Yeah.
How did that feel?
That was pretty badass.
Right? That's an addictive feeling.
That is addictive.
Yeah.
And but what was even more badass, like I didn't know how to celebrate myself when I came home from Mexico.
Right.
But when I came home from Canada, I was like, oh, this is where it's at.
Yeah. You stand a little taller and you're like proud of yourself because it's like, I did that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And absolutely should be celebrated and be proud of that. And that's, I think when you take that step to do that thing, it's what you're talking about with no helicopters. You're going to want to go on to the next and go like, I can do this. And I'm proud of me.
Don't ever forget to celebrate your wins. If we forget that vital part, we're setting ourselves up for failure because our brains, our souls need that acknowledgement that it's just, maybe it's our inner child that we need that pat on the back from ourselves and say, wow, you really did it there. And we can get so, like you just said, we can get so focused on getting the walk finished, on getting that next raise, that we don't celebrate, if we're looking for a raise or we're looking for something, we don't celebrate the fact that we turned in an absolute masterpiece that will get our name to the top of the scoreboard, or you know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's every step that should be celebrated. And life is just all about conundrums. Like, while we need to celebrate ourselves, we don't get to lie in a puddle of victimhood and there's just all.
Yeah. And when I observe those people, like as I'm walking and I kind of look and go, okay, like, let's just look at how everybody's face is. I always am like, I wonder, I'm going to just watch everybody's face. And they look like, and I mean, I don't know what's going on in their world. So who am I to assume anything? But the miserable faces, because they're, whatever's happening, but like, there isn't that just, I'm just going for a walk and I'm happy to be out here. And it's always, you can see the stress on their face.
Yeah.
And there was a guy that I was doing this walk and he went by, he was running or jogging. So he passed me a few times, but every person he passed, no matter who it was, good morning. And people would be like, like they didn't know how to do that. And I thought, I'm going to do that. So I did that one day. I was like, good morning. And some people were like, smile and, oh, good morning. And then some people were like, you crazy woman, like, what are you doing? It doesn't matter what you're going to get reaction wise, but it's just like getting people kind of out of that, like, slow down for a second.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. So you mentioned your course that you're doing. Is that for, can you tell us a little bit about the course?
So The original,
how did you find it?
Those guardian angels again.
Right.
It showed up in one of my groups on Facebook as Dean and Tony were going live, and they were selling their KBB course, which is the Knowledge Broker Blueprint. And so I signed up for that one, finished that one in April. And that one has all the information that you need to become a knowledge broker. And basically what a knowledge broker is you take your mess and you turn it into your message. You take the knowledge that you yourself have gone through, which is exactly what I knew I was looking for when I watched it, because I'm like, I know that I'm not the only woman who has walked out of a patriarchal, depressive, codependent, controlling culture. And I have found a way to live abundantly. Like, I want my message to get out. And the thing is to varying degrees, that's what we're all in. Doesn't matter if you even never have a religion. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So then after April, I stepped into a higher priced one where we get more intense hand holding. So basically we're taking everything they gave us in the first course, and they're walking us through implementing it into our own, it's called a mastermind. I'm sure you've heard of that term. And what I am working to launch will be a 3-part, which will be a membership, a mentorship, and a mastermind.
So very good. Oh, very good.
I've been putting in a lot of hours.
Yeah. I mean, your lives that you do they're amazing. They're awesome. The one you did on Monday, I showed Rex and he's like, oh, that's so good. Because it was something about this, not, because I agree with you, fake it till you make it is the most annoying freaking statement out there. I hate it. I just hate it. It rubs me the wrong way greatly.
Enthusiasm, I know what it was. Enthusiasm is a good substitute for skill.
Yes. So can you just kind of share that again? Because I think that was an incredible message.
Oh my gosh.
It was just like you were saying, like, rather than going into, the week, be enthusiastic about it.
Just, well, the way I look at it is 2 years ago, I always tell people, if I say it once, you better catch it the first time, because I'll never remember.
I shared it on my Facebook. I'm going to go back and watch it, because it's a short one, but it was so good, because you were talking about how, enthusiasm, if you're enthusiastic, the skill will follow.
Well, okay, put it this way. 2 years ago, I had never shook my hips or my shoulders to a dance at all. And and I watched this woman, and I mean, she was just free. She just did it. I'm like, well, I'll never be like her. But I kept watching her, and I managed to step into that a little bit courageously. And today, I don't care who watches me. I dance when I'm in my minivan. I turn my tunes up as loud as I want. I open the windows and I shimmy and right there. So I can't two-step. I don't have a single professional dance move or whatever you call it, but I show up with enthusiasm everywhere as I go. Maybe this skill will come. I really don't care whether it does or not. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, as long as you're having fun.
And so I look at that in every way, like, where can you show up with maximum enthusiasm? And you have absolutely really no clue what you're doing, but enthusiasm is always going to have the, okay, what do I need to do here? Oh, that's okay. So always questioning, but with an optimistic and like, hey, this is fun. Hey, this is this is exciting. Like, I'm not in a place of nervousness. Really, you change the word nervous to excitement, and you just show up for your week enthused.
Yeah.
And I guarantee your week's going to go 100% better.
Yes. It's all about mindset. It all comes back to mindset, because it's the thing that runs our whole being. So, and it's the thing that, you can talk and be negative, and guess what's going to happen? Everything around you is going to be crap, because that's what you're focused on.
Yeah.
The negative is what's going to come up. If you're focused on the good, that's what's going to come up.
Yeah.
The rising ships or the rising tide
raises all ships.
Yes. Yes. We could be on here all day. Oh my gosh. I think, yeah, I'm so glad that you reached out, that you wanted to come on. I appreciate it so much. You're like, when are you booking? And I'm like, well, how about Saturday?
Well, thank you, because I'll tell you why I did it. It was another fear that I could step over, because I told Corey about 2 weeks ago, I said, I should offer Carla, I'd talk. And then I'm like, and I told him, I said, keep me accountable. And he didn't, not really.
And he didn't.
but I just shrunk into the background. I'm like, actually, I don't need to do that. And then here a couple of days ago, like, yeah, I do need to do that. I need to do that for my own self to again, this is another step in my Mount Kilimanjaro. Get on with someone I don't know and just converse. So
I am so glad you did. And I know I know there's some questions on here, I think, so we can go back on the live after and we can answer them, but
sounds good.
It's been amazing. Where can people find you? Because I think they need to know where to find you for your lives, if they can follow you there. At
this point, so I'm working to launch what I'm calling my soul gym. Big surprise, right?
Nice.
That's going to be up hopefully within a week or two. But at this point, Suzanne Boehs on both Facebook and Instagram.
Awesome. We'll put the Instagram, we'll put it in the comments so people can find you over there. Perfect. But thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday. This was really, really good. I'm thrilled that you came on, and thank you so much for sharing with us.
And thank you, Carla. And I agree with you. Maybe I'll come and walk where you're walking, and we'll just walk and talk, because we can do a lot of this.
Oh my gosh. Like as we're sitting here, I'm thinking, okay, I think we have to have a conversation outside of this one. So
let's make it happen.
Yeah, I would love that for sure. So, And anyways, everybody else that's been on here, thank you so much for being with us. And we'll go back and look at the comments, and we'll answer them. And just, you guys, this group, A Coffee with Carla, everybody that follows it, everybody that is here, they keep coming back every week. And that's the reason why I love having just everyday people on, because this is where I think everybody's message is different, everybody's story is different, but everybody learns something. So they keep coming back. Thank you guys for always coming back, and you guys have a great Saturday, and we will see you all hopefully next week.
Thank you, everyone.
See you soon.
Yes.
Bye for now.
Bye.